First off, some thanks, Digium, for having me. Like we said, first time here, so some people, this is their third AstraCon. This is my third hour of AstraCon. Josh Culp, he helped me a lot when I had some issues, and Nir, who you may have seen this morning, was really helpful in making it all work, so thanks. So I'm not allowed to talk about my business, even though I'm a business owner. I'm a marketer, so you all hate me. I'm also a nerd a little bit, so I get to do some fun things. I've been an Asterisk user. I've never been an Asterisk developer. I've always looked at it and said, you know, that looks like a mess. I'm going to not do that right now. And about a year ago, end of last year, I decided, you know, I really need to work on my call center. We're spending a lot of time just doing nothing. It turned into be one of those projects that turned out to be really fun and brought me here in front of you today. So I'm pretty excited about it. My actual business is printing. Nobody really cares about that because it's really low tech, but we sell printing here in the US, across the country. Anybody already written their ARI app? Any hands? ARI apps? Okay, a couple people. These are the only slides that'll be important to you today. Okay, if you've written an app, it's not going to be super, super helpful. So what we're going to cover, I have lots of information and not a lot of time, so I should be able to get through it all. Some high-level ideas and pitfalls. So almost everybody has the same sort of questions. I sit on IRC and get the same questions over and over. We all answer them. Sometimes the documentation's improved. Most of the time it is. We'll go through how to use a library, which makes all of the technologies we just heard about, it makes you not need to know anything about them. And we'll go into an actual app that we use ourselves. The biggest thing to take away that I couldn't figure out when I read all the documentation, I read the mailing lists, I asked some questions, I couldn't figure out if I have a WebSocket process or almost a server really that's receiving events and getting and sending requests. How do I do something outside of that? And finally, the big aha moment I had was there's actually a separate process. So Dan just talked about having WebRTC, so you can send a request from a web page. It doesn't have to be from your server. Once this little piece of information I finally figured out, it actually made sense to me, and everything sort of started to work a lot better. I could figure out what I was going to do, where I was going to do it. Really, really helped. One of the most common questions we get to, this is again, building your first app. So these are the mistakes that a lot of people make up front, is all of the examples have this path up here where it's some URL it starts with ARI. And one of the first configuration things it wants is a prefix. And all the examples say ARI, so I went and put a prefix of ARI. And so absolutely nothing worked. And I couldn't figure it out. I'm a network guy, so I ended up putting it on a separate machine and using Wireshark because I didn't have a better tool to figure it out. But it turns out there's just one line that'll help you see what's going on. In the CLI, if you do core set debug 2, you can see what your requests are coming in. And if you set it to a higher number, you can see the responses going out. So if you're developing your first app, this is a really, really, really good friend. You can see, that if you can read it, it's sort of small at the bottom, but it shows, hey, I have this URL, it starts with ARI channels. I'm going to check it against something called HTTP status. It doesn't match. I'm going to check it against something called static. That doesn't match. I'm going to check it against something called ARI. Hey, that does match. OK, I'm going to go send that off. So that was really big. It's a common question of based on the examples, I should make a prefix in there. You don't have to do it. You can leave it blank. Also, I like questions. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to raise your hand, shout it out. It's always good to make sure everybody's following along. Here's one that you won't run into as you start your first app. You'll run into halfway through it. Everybody talks about it being asynchronous. This REST API is asynchronous. What that means really is you can send a request, and before you even get a response to that, you're going to have events going on based on that thing, especially as things get faster, as you have more concurrency. You're going to send a request that you haven't even received an answer back yet, and you're going to have events firing that say this is already doing something. So it's really important to put an ID on everything. That way you know what it is. I wrote a small app to begin with, so all of my state data and session data and all that is just simply stored in the channel ID or bridge ID name because it's pretty simple. You can store it in a database, you can store it in a memcache, whatever you want, but make sure that you're putting an ID on it. It'll make more sense when we see some examples, but this is the one thing that catches people halfway down the road. Next up is use a library. I come from a network background, so I was going to use curl to speak all these things natively, and then I saw a little link in the bottom of a wiki page somewhere that said, hey, look at these libraries. And I've been a PHP guy. You may have seen in that first slide, I've been writing PHP for 15 years. That does not mean I'm good at PHP. It means that I have 1 year of experience 15 times, okay? So I didn't really have a lot of time to develop it. I wanted to get it done and working, just like all of us business owners. And so this library does all of these things. You have to know absolutely nothing about any of these technologies, and it just works. So it really speeds up development time. All of them are like this. I happen to be the PHP one. The Node.js, you'll see a lot of examples, the Python. They take care of all of these underlying technologies for you. So a single function of Originate takes care of talking to it, encryption, responses, events, logging. All of that's done for you. So use a library. Use any library, please. This was a big one, a real question that I had too. You know when you originate a call or a channel, it comes into the dial plan, it does whatever you tell it to do. You can, with the ARI, you can either send it to your app that you're writing or to the dial plan. You can't do either one. So if you want to call someone, it's not as you'd expect, I guess. The wiki's updated, and we'll see an example of that. But the documentation wasn't clear. I finally got one of the developers to tell me that you could do one or the other. And I said, how did you know that? Or how should I know that? And they said, there's no way. So now the wiki documentation is pretty clear on that. And it'll make sense with the example. Another big thing, a big question is, I want to call some dial plan application from the ARI. You can't. It's meant to replace a dial plan application. So I want to call Chanspy. I want to call Mix Monitor. That's not how it works here. Here you're going to implement your own Chanspy, your own Mix Monitor. You're going to do your own, write your own app. That's the powerful part of it. You can do whatever you want. And a lot of times it's simpler, cleaner, and faster than using the existing old dial plan app. Sort of makes sense so far? Any head nods? Okay, good. Everybody seen the movie The Matrix? Ever heard of that little movie a couple years ago? This is when Neo's trying to jump over the building and everybody falls the first time. This next thing is the mistake that people make, the one mistake that pretty much everybody makes the first time, even if they don't admit it. What it is they'll originate, create a channel, dial, and they want to add it to a bridge right away. Well, in a synchronous world, that works. In the ARI, it doesn't. You can't do that. Everyone seems to try it. Not everybody will admit that they've tried it, but this makes complete sense to someone that is used to Astra, and it doesn't work that way. So what we have to do is dial, originate. Once it's picked up, then we can add it to the bridge. So there's a delay in there. There's a waiting, and you have to wait until it's actually answered before we can bridge it. We'll see how to do that, but this is what everybody does right away. Please don't do that now that you're here. There's 70 people in here. I'll at least save you some time. We saw this earlier too. This looks a lot more like JavaScript than anything else where we're reacting to events. The library takes care of all of this. You can see what the events are because one of the libraries, most of them by default, show you all the events that are happening. So you can just call in or create a test and you can see the events fire and they all sort of make sense. Even to somebody without a strong background in this, it makes sense. Stasis start is the first one that you'll see if a channel comes into this actual app. You answer it, you do whatever. But you see how it's reacting. It's always some sort of function where you can do it. This next one says, shows you what you can do, just spit something out. The other big piece of this is these events happen fast. So there's a event called channel hangup request. So you would think that that's when the channel, something wants it to hang up. It's a request. But by the time you get that event and can react to it, the channel's already gone. So what people will do is they'll see that request and they'll try to get some information about the channel, but it's already disappeared. It's already gone. So these events happen really fast. They're queued. They come out of order sometimes. You'll see those those sort of weird things as you start going. As you're testing it slowly yourself, it's pretty clear what's going on, but you have to pay attention to events and understand that they'll happen out of order. They'll happen before before you finish the request to do something, it'll already have done something else. It's just a new way of thinking, a new pattern to think about. Another one, anybody use CDR reports for anything, like maybe billing or just a couple people? Okay. In the report, there's this destination field. It's not here. It's not in. That's only something from the dial plan. So these calls that are in your app, they're not logged in. They're not completely logged in the CDRs. So what you have to do is log it yourself. There's some SQL that I used, and there's certain events. So when it first gets originated, maybe we'll add it to the database. When it actually gets connected, we'll update the database. When the call's over, we'll mark it as finished. And all of these CDR reports that we're using usually go into some other system anyway, right? So rather than have to push it in, you can just put it directly in there in real time rather than parsing the logs or whatever you want to do. Here's this example of I want to use Chanspy. You can't. You have to write your own. And we use a function called Snoop. He's up there if anybody is familiar with him. He's author of that actual ARI. No? No, okay. So Snoop can spy or whisper or monitor. And then Playbacks cue a sound. We heard about that this morning too. You can cue 5 sounds at once. It'll play all 5 right in a row. Not right in a row, but right over the top of each other. Records audio in a bridge. So one of the real common things is recording. So that's a function of a bridge. So if you want to record something, the only way to do it is to put it in a bridge. It may be by itself, but you still need to record the bridge. The other thing about Snoop is it creates a channel. So then you can do whatever you want with that channel. You can move it to another bridge if somebody's in there and they're monitoring. So these are real low-level things that allow you to quickly build the apps or functions or features that you need. The sound things, again, recording is only for a bridge. And then Snoop can be on a channel and it creates another channel. So they're little things that you're probably not used to, but they make life a lot easier and give you really powerful building blocks. Anybody used ARI to do things with voicemail or you're recording sounds or anything like that? Okay, a couple of those. Well, when you record a new sound, it doesn't get put into Asterisk Sound Index. And right now, there's no way to do that. So in one of my apps, we recorded some sounds, and they just wouldn't play. And it took hours for me to figure out that I had to, I could see the sound, I could see it in the file system, everything seemed to be there. So from the CLI, I had to reload the sounds. I didn't have to restart all Asterisk. That let me see everything. We'll see an example of getting the detail on a sound. Is there a question? Yeah, little tiny things as it's developing, because it's about 2 years old, and we've seen lots of apps in the last year. Since last AstroCon is really when things started happening. And if you looked at the schedule here, half of our talks are about this, right? This whole room all week, and some of the other talks are all about ARI. So it's still a little bit developing, but it's very stable. It's just little features here and there that need to get added. Now we'll go into actual code examples. So what I had to do, I have customer service staff, and they call people that we haven't heard from in 3 months. They call the people that we're active with. If you've ever been in a call center, which is probably everybody here from one side or another, what happens when one of the call center reps makes a call and then finishes the call? They turn to their neighbor and say, hey, that guy was so nice, or man, what a jerk. And they go on to their neighbor who's now not working either. And I was trying to get rid of a lot of that. I was trying to make that time between phone calls go down, but we're in the customer service business. We're not in the telemarketing business. So I can only call one person at a time. I can never call one of our customers and have dead air. That's not the kind of business we are. So I looked at all those dialers. Vici Dial is I'm from Tampa around here, so is it. I looked at a lot of those pre-made tools, and nothing seemed to fit exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to pull information from my CRM in real time. So if I'm calling people that I haven't talked to in 3 months or 9 months, and someone comes in that's a brand new customer that needs to get called, I want to jump right to that customer and make that call next. The existing dialers all have that sort of what they call real-time functionality, but it was going to be a lot of work to connect it to my CRM. My CRM, is, if it matters, is Kayako. It's a MySQL PHP-based open source thing. So we started with just dialing from the CRM. We would drag and drop it into our phone app, and it would dial for us. That worked okay. Then we decided to move to a click to dial. So you've all seen that. You click, it calls you, then it calls out. And then we thought we were going to be really smart. We moved it from click to dial to when they open the ticket in the CRM, it dials for them. So that sped things up also just a little bit, but nothing great. Finally, this ARI stuff we got fully operational in March or so. And you saw at the beginning, there's about 100,000 calls have gone through it. There's guys in here that do 100,000 calls in a day now. So this is your first ARI app, how to beat the common pitfalls and things that we did. It's for me, as the business owner, it's been really, really helpful in that I can save personnel, I can save labor. So we easily cut out 2 customer service people, which is like $700 a week each in their fees, you know, their labor and management and everything else. So it's been huge just in the last 7 months. At first, we just wanted to call people sequentially. We just wanted to speed up calling, which is pretty easy to do in all of these things. But then we decided that we realized that looking at the call dispositions that we left more than half of them are voicemails. So we decided we would leave a voicemail for them too. So now that involves listening for a voicemail, which we have the humans do, not any crazy technology, and then waiting for silence. You've heard of that, and then actually playing a sound. So there's lots of little building blocks that the ARI does really easily that became very quickly and makes it a little more complicated than just a simple dialer. So our goal is really to still serve the customer, but call people a lot faster and waste a lot less time between calls. Some prerequisites, asterisk 13 plus, anybody in here will be fine there. Some sort of web server with a newer version of PHP. Newer, I think they're releasing PHP 7 this month, so 5.4 should be okay. We need some pre-recorded messages, and then some sort of database for logging and some way to talk to the CRM. So not a lot. I actually installed, because it was a new project, I got to buy a new toy, so I got to buy a new server. I installed free PBX on it because I thought I needed all of that. The server is complete overkill by itself. The free PBX is too. It turns out all I really needed to do was set up a couple of just how to talk to my provider, and that turned out to be about 3 lines. So it's really not a lot of setup. I'm not going to talk too much about the setup because it's really straightforward. There's a ton of examples. They're all right. If you've looked at some of the older Asterisk stuff, you go to VoIP info or somewhere, and the information's years out of date. Because this is all new, all the information's still up to date. So all of the examples that I've ever found are correct. So all of that stuff is pretty simple. I'm not going to really cover that. This is why I'm not a graphic designer or a web developer. This is a screenshot of the interface. It's pretty low tech. There's not a lot going on because it's just a simple progressive dialer. Here's a screenshot of what it looks like with our CRM in it. So the dialer is still at the top there, and it just puts the CRM in an iframe, so they have everything at once. It's not the WebRTC mother of all highest cutting edge of technology, but it works really, really well for what we're doing. And it's just the dialers wrapping what we're already doing. So again, I'm not a graphic designer or user interface developer, but those big buttons seem to work fine for my staff. There's only 8 of them that use it. So what do we want to do? We want to call people, call all of our customers. We want to call them in a certain order that changes as soon as a customer does something. We want to react to it. So all of a sudden, this asynchronous and reaction stuff makes sense, right? It sounds like it's a good idea. If we hear a voicemail, if our customer service agents hear a voicemail, we want them to hit a button and leave a pre-recorded message and go on to the next call. So there's some movement that has to go on. We want to log and record everything. And my customer service reps, just like all call center reps, aren't super tech savvy. So we have to give them lots of indications of what's going on. So if we look at our killer user interface, the buttons will turn different colors, and they'll hear in their sound, and they'll hear a sound in their ear. When a call hangs up, they're still connected to the dialer. They're used to the phone call being over. So we'll play some sounds to them of what's going on. So they'll hear a goodbye. They'll hear the number is not answering if there's a problem. And here's the numbers. I think we've already talked about it a little bit. They averaged maybe, their actual talk time's less than a minute a call, but they'd average about 30 calls an hour. They'd stop, they'd talk to their neighbor. They'd not even realize they'd stopped. With the dialer, when we first implemented it, they could do about 60 calls an hour. The best reps could do 90 calls an hour. So we basically tripled their productivity. And they're saving their time too. In the morning, they make a lot of follow-up calls. And so they were leaving voicemail after voicemail after voicemail. So they get tired. Well, now they're just hitting a button and going on to the next call. So they're actually quieter during the morning and saving their energy and breath for the rest of the day. One of the things I keep hearing is dial plan, dial plan, dial plan. We need the dial plan for all these apps. There's absolutely no lines of dial plan, not in this app. I needed to configure nothing. The ARI took care of all of it. One of the jokes I heard yesterday in the DevCon was we're going to deprecate all of the dial plan features except for ACES. Oh, I saw it online. Oh, I thought it was a joke. Apparently, it's not a joke. Okay, good. Thank God. Okay. Oh, okay. So cut that out of the recording. We'll be good. So here's some code. Here's what's going on. So to originate something, we need an endpoint of where to go. And then I'm sending everything back to my app. So my app will need to know who am I calling? Am I calling a customer service agent or am I calling a client? And how we do that is with this thing called app args or arguments. There's one there that says is rep. So that would be a customer service rep. And later we'll see why we need those or what we're going to do with them. I have a couple of things extra set, a 10-second timeout. So they only get 10 seconds to answer the call. And that sounds crazy, but they're clicking a button that says call me. So if they don't answer it within 10 seconds, they're doing something wrong anyway. You see a couple other variables. And you see how easy this is? It's very clear. There's not a lot of work to do. There's actually some optional things in here. You can take some of these out and it would still work just fine. So this is probably one of the things you're going to do a lot of is originating calls. Now once we have the call going, we still need to add it to a bridge. So there's a lot of code on the screen, but what's really the takeaway is we can check a bridge and see who's in there and get all the details about it with just bridges details. It's incredibly simple to use. It gives you a JSON or an array back, whatever language you're in. So it's really powerful to get a lot of information with one line of code. You don't have to write a lot. It's very quick. It's very easy to write, very easy to read, very easy to debug. A little bit more of this. We set up some variables, not very interesting. Here, we're calling a client. It's the same originate command, but maybe a longer timeout. So we give a customer 50 seconds to answer versus 10 seconds. And you see these arguments up here, is outbound, and then a rep username. So we're going to use those arguments to the app to tell us where to bridge. So rather than store stuff in a database, because we're doing very simple things, we just keep it in the channel ID and the channel name, and then we're not doing all these extra database calls. It's pretty easy to use. So we've got originating to a rep, which has a couple variable set, originating to a customer, which just has some different variable set. That's all that's going on. Because I want to log them, well, there's a SQL statement there if you're interested. And then we have to, because the rep always has the phone connected to the dialer, we have to give them some sort of indication what's going on. So when they click dial a customer, it plays ringing in their ear that they're used to. So they get a visual indication that it's dialing and they hear that it's ringing. Leaving a voicemail. So we have a sound file for each type of voicemail they leave. They might call somebody and say, because we're in printing, hey, would you look at the proof of your business card? Or they might have another one that says, hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, and whatever you ordered last time was going on sale, and it made me think about you. So we have different voicemails for different products in different situations. ARI lets us just choose the right file, business logic, it's not a lot there, and then play it. We also want to know that if it's there. So here's what we talked about, this sounds dash detail. that'll let us know the format of it and a couple things. What's really important there is that Asterisk can see it. That's all we care about. Make sense so far? Okay, cool. Leaving a voicemail, there's a lot of code on here, but all that's really important is we're going to take our call out of a bridge with a real live person and put them into a bridge that's going to play a voicemail to them. That voicemail, or excuse me, that bridge will record separately. So because everything's recorded and we're recording bridges, one of the little gotchas that I had was I'm recording a bridge with my customer service rep and the voicemail greeting. Hi, you've reached Mark and I'm not here to take your call. And then they go into a different bridge to leave a voicemail. Well, what I did is just recorded them separately and stitch them together later when I turn them into MP3s. So it's, I thought it was going to be a big challenge, but we barely listened to the recordings and we stitch them together after the fact. So I thought that I needed to do that in real time, and with the recordings you don't really have to. You can see how easy it is to stop a recording. Here, recordings live stop, the name of the recording. To take something out of a bridge is also one line. Pretty much everything you want to do is one line, and this building your first app is all about how do what pattern do I use to accomplish this little goal, because everything's a small step. Leaving a voicemail, we create a bridge, which is it's 4 lines on the screen just because it formatted it a little better. And then we had wait for silence in the dial plan or all these other answering machine detection things. We couldn't do that with ARI because that's a dial plan application. So the developers gave us this really nice idea of talk to detect, and that'll either turn on or turn off talk detecting. And that's almost like silence detection. And that is the strangest format I've ever seen of how to call a function with a parameter. I thought the parameter would be inside where it says set. So there's getting to be more and more examples as time goes on. But this was one of the little goofy things that I saw that I tried it 10 different ways and it finally worked with one of them. This idea of talk detect just says, give me 2100 milliseconds or 2.1 seconds of silence and then emit an event later. So tell me that the silence has started or that the silence has stopped is all that that's doing. So we're going to use when silence is stopped, let's leave a voicemail. Because we're not using a database, but we're keeping all of our information, each voicemail message that we leave, each recording is different. It has a different person's voice for whoever's leaving it, and it's a different product or next step in their process. We use a channel variable to store that. So when we know what the customer is, which is before we even dial, we know what we're going to do. We set a channel variable, which you see at the you see us getting it at the top. My initials are MI, so everything's MI something. Voicemail MIVM to play, so that's whichever voicemail we're going to play. And then we put it in a bridge, and then we play it. So it's pretty simple get playback. And then it'll also tell us about it too. And one of the things I saw is if we detect silence, hey, you've reached Mark's voicemail, long pause, I'm not here to take your call, it'll catch it. And it'll say that they've finished leaving the voicemail. And so one of the things we checked was if the customer has that pause in there and they start talking again, we'll restart our recording or our playback of our recording. This absolutely will lead to an infinite loop. So if we get a human and they say something and then wait 2 seconds and then say something, it'll keep starting the voicemail to them. We haven't had that yet. I'm really waiting for that call. I just want to listen to it for giggles. So you could put a limit on that. We haven't bothered because it's fine. Playing a sound, we're going to play it to a bridge. The reason we play it to a bridge is because we can record a bridge. So that pattern is important too. If we're going to if we want to hear both sides of something, we want to record, and we can record a bridge. So we have to play to a bridge. We don't play to that person's channel because I want to record it. You see how easy it is to play things. A lot of these are optional too. You see playback start to a specific bridge, a specific sound. It's very easy to do. There's not a lot of magic there. It's always the patterns that are trouble when you're starting. What else do we have here? Oh, hanging up. Either when we're done leaving the voicemail, we still have to hang up. So hang up is simply channels delete. Really easy to do. We also stop the recording because we're done there, because we're recording the bridge, not the channel. And we get rid of the bridge that we were using too. So we clean everything up when we're done. So this is after we're leaving a voicemail, we hang up. Now, if we leave a voicemail, we know exactly what's going to happen. The recording finish playing, and then we hang up the channel. But that doesn't happen as much. What really happens is we're talking to a customer, and usually they hang up when we're done talking to them, or we click a button on our beautiful interface that says hang up. So when we do that, we have to stop our recording, save that, and that's really it. If we click a button to hang it up, we'll have to delete it, channel delete to hang it up. Otherwise, it'll be hung up from the other end, and we'll just simply stop the recording. So all of these events, what I drew out from my computer science days was a state diagram of all the different pieces. And that really helped me say, okay, well, once I'm done with a call, I need to hang it up, obviously. What other stuff do I have to deal with? Oh, the recording. Oh, I'm recording. Okay, let me stop that. I'm in a bridge. Do I need to do anything with that bridge? No, I want to leave that, or I want to delete it. So a sort of state diagram or just a flow chart really helps you with your development of what's going to go on. You'll see what's going on. You'll see events emitted if you're looking at the logs. So it's really easy to see what's happening and know how to react to it. One of the things I said is my call center staff, they're call center staff. They're not technology people. They're not telephony people. They need as many indications as they can of what's going on. So if a customer hangs up, we'll play them this goodbye sound. You've probably all heard this. We talked a little bit about putting an ID on things. This ID on this sound is called goodbye, so we don't have to do anything when it's over. With our voicemails, we have to hang up when it's over. So when I originally wrote this code, I said, okay, whenever I end a playback, whenever a sound is finished playing, hang up the channel. And then I realized that I don't need to do that for every single sound. So what I did is put a variable on there, an ID on the sound, and if the sound said it was a voicemail, then hang up that channel. Don't hang up every time we play goodbye. Definitely did that wrong the first time. Okay, so we have some events. So everything we've talked about is really now all about events. So this at the top is stasis start. That's when the call comes into our app. It can either come in one of two ways. We've originated ourselves to our app, or even to another app, or it's come in from the dial plan. First thing, since we want it, you do something with it. We'll answer the channel. Then I add it to a bridge here. You can see add channel. You give it a bridge and a channel ID, and you're done. And then I needed to know what kind of call it was. Is it someone to my customer service staff, or is it out to a client? So this is where those channel variables came in. You can see, it has some arguments, and one of them I looked at is something I set. It's pretty straightforward and pretty good, pretty easy to do. So that's how we tell what to do with a call when it comes in. Let's see. Also, we'll get this channel destroyed event. That's when something's gone wrong. Usually it's a bad number. So I had to tell my customer service staff, it's not super clear, but there's a number not answering near the bottom. So I'd play a sound to them, and then we'd stop the recording if there was one. So lots of I'm seeing events. Do I need to do anything as I was developing? And I'd see an event and say, oh, that says channel destroyed. Well, what actually happened? Oh, I tried to dial a number that's area code was 9999 or 999. Okay, I need to let my customer service staff know what's going on. So we've got events. And then there's some resources here. I got a couple examples too. This is where you get help. This is how to get it done. So if you take nothing else from whatever I said, just remember there's lots of help available to you. The Asterisk Docs Wiki, most companies' wikis are awful, especially development ones. They say coming soon, or they have code that's outdated. I've been really impressed with it. It's made everything really easy to use. The examples are relatively clear. They're not in PHP, but they were so clear that I could very easily apply them. If anybody uses IRC, Asterisk or Asterisk ARI, anybody on IRC? 2 people, okay. The users mailing list, and I found out about this weekend. There's actually an application development mailing list. I had no idea until Sunday. So there's a mailing list specifically for developing these apps. Super low traffic. I'm sorry? Oh. If you're using a library, which you absolutely should be, wherever that library is, generally has lots of examples and source to. And then I learned a lot from last year's Asterisk talks. I watched a bunch of videos. I watch them, I'll download them and watch them at double or triple speed, because this speed when watching a recording is painful, isn't it? So watch me at double speed in a couple of months. And again, half of this year's talks are about the ARI, so you're going to learn a lot. You're going to have a lot of ideas. Like we just talked about how to send it to Watson, and I'm just worried about leaving a voicemail. So there's a whole gamut of things you can do with this. And then one of the things that we offer, or Asterisk offers, is called Swagger, which I'd never heard of. Here's an example of what it is. You can go to ari.asterisk.org, and it gives you this whole interface where it's all point and click. So the whole development process, if you want a list of channels, you click on that top one that says Get Channels, and it shows you a real-time list of what you're getting. It'll show it in a raw format or in a parsable format. So another one is Post Channels Ring. That's just the nearest one. So you can click on that, you can tell it what channel, and you can click a button, and then you can hear it ringing. So this is all, I'll probably be in trouble for saying this, but the visual basic of ARI, like you just point and click and develop. It's really easy to start doing that. This is super helpful too. The only thing you got to do is set this allowed origins parameter. You see it up there to ari.asterisk.org. It's pretty easy. What else we got? Oh, I like quotes, and I got a quote from a real old school telecom hardware provider. He made telecom hardware in the 70s. It says, everyone here has a sense that right now we're in one of these moments that we are influencing the future. That's by a guy named Steve Jobs, old telecom developer or hardware manufacturer. And that's what the ARI really seems like it is right now. We're talking to Watson. We're creating call center apps. We're making games that go with TV. I didn't even know there was such a thing. That I don't watch late night TV, but apparently you can call in and play a game. And ARI is empowering all this. Asterisk is empowering all this. So it's really, really cool. Any questions? Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening, paying attention. I saw very few computers open, and that made me really happy. So any questions? No? I'll repeat the question if you have one. That way it's on the mic. Yes, sir. Way in the back. I personally didn't have anything that needed a timer. The only thing that I had that was timed was the talk detect, which waited for 2 seconds of silence. And once it did that, it gave me an event that said channel talking finished, and I was done. If you need to write your own timers, yes, you'd have to do that. The libraries don't provide those. I don't know if they talked about it yesterday, but one of the what Asterisk wants of the library developers is to not just give us a library that re-implements this interface in your language of choice, but they want to give you higher level things like dial and bridge all in one, so it's just one line to the end user. If you need some timers, we can really talk about getting them in there. It should be pretty easy. Sorry, not more help. Okay.
Anyone else? No. In which case, I'd like to thank Mark. That was a most excellent presentation,
Thank you.
And for a first time, that was truly outstanding. So just make sure all of you fill in a form or get on the app and give Mark lots of stars for that, because I thought that was really good. So big hand for Mark.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.